Okay, welcome again, dear students. Myself, Dr. Kaleem Ahmed, Assistant Professor, Department of Wildlife Sciences, Aligarh Muslim University, Aligarh. Now, in today's lecture, we will continue to discuss the remaining biodiversity hotspots. The first one is Forest of East Australia. This biodiversity hotspots of Forest of East Australia was identified as the 31st biodiversity hotspots by the team of researchers from Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Institute working actually with Conservation International. The area was determined to be a hotspot because it has more than 2,100 endemic vascular plant species. It has also lost 77% of its original habitat, thereby surpassing the requirements of 1,500 endemic plant species and 70% of lost habitat. There are also more than 8,250 species of vascular plants in these biodiversity hotspots, of which at least 26% are endemic. In total, there are 549 bird species, of which 28 are considered to be endemic. If we talk about the reptile endemism in this biodiversity hotspot is about 27%. If we talk about the amphibian diversity in this biodiversity hotspots of Forest of East Australia, the species endemism is the highest, that is about 32%. The other biodiversity hotspots is Horn of Africa. Centered on the arid horn east of Ethiopian highlands, the Horn of Africa biodiversity hotspots covers the Rift Valley, which divides the Ethiopian highlands into two major blocks, the xeroic bushlands of northeastern Kenya and the southern coastal parts of the Arabian Peninsula. Although research into the flora of the Horn of Africa is still ongoing, but till date there are about 5,000 species of vascular plants in the region have been recorded. There are about 697 bird species regularly recorded in these biodiversity hotspots, of which it has been considered that 24 are actually endemic. 7 of these species are found only in Somalia. Nearly 220 mammal species are found in the Horn of Africa biodiversity hotspots, of which only 20 are endemic to this biodiversity hotspot. In this biodiversity hotspot of Horn of Africa, it is considered as the highest level of endemisms occurs among the reptiles, with more than 90 of around 285 species found nowhere else in the world. Unlike the reptiles, if we talk about the amphibians, are actually relatively poorly represented in the arid Horn of Africa biodiversity hotspots, with nearly 30 species recorded, of which 6 are endemic. Another biodiversity hotspot is Irano-Anatolian. This biodiversity hotspot includes major parts of central and eastern Turkey, a small portion of southern Georgia, the Nequin province of Azerbaijan, much of Armenia, northeastern Iraq, northern and western Iraq, and the northern Kopdak range in the Turkmenistan. It has been found that nearly 400 plant species have been recorded in this biodiversity hotspot of Irano-Anatolian, of which 1,200 are considered as endemic species. There are more than 360 species of birds regularly occurring in the Irano-Anatolians, although none are found to be an endemic in this biodiversity hotspot. More than 140 mammals are found in these biodiversity hotspots, of which 10 are considered to be an endemic species. If we talk about the reptiles, reptiles are also represented by more than 115 species, of which dozens considered to be an endemic species. Roughly 20 amphibian species have been recorded in these biodiversity hotspots, including two endemic and threatened salamanders. Another biodiversity hotspot is Japan. This biodiversity hotspots includes the land area of nation of Japan, while the central mountain area of the Honshu is one of the snowiest region on the earth. Japan is home to roughly 5,600 species of vascular plants, about third of which are endemic. If we talk about the bird diversity, nearly 370 bird species are known to occur regularly in Japan, of which 13 are considered to be an endemic species, means these species are found nowhere else in the world. The two critically endangered species, the Okonia woodpecker and the Bonan white-eye, are also recorded in this biodiversity hotspot. Japan also sports some important water bird population, including the population of endangered red-crowned crane. Japan is home to only around 90 species of mammals, and about half of which are endemic to this biodiversity hotspot. Japan has more than 65 reptile species, almost 30 of which are considered to be an endemic species. Endemism is particularly high among amphibians, and it has been found that out of 50 species, 44 species of amphibians are not found elsewhere in the world. It means they are endemic to this biodiversity hotspot. And the next is Madrean Pine-Oak. This biodiversity hotspot includes Mexico main mountain chains. Vast majority of the hotspot lie within Mexico. A few scattered patches occur in the southern United States. The Madrean Pine-Oak woodlands are home to about 5,300 species of flowering plants. Roughly, it has been recorded that 525 bird species are found in the Madrean Pine-Oak biodiversity hotspot, of which more than 20 species are considered to be an endemic to this biodiversity hotspot. Nearly 330 mammals are thought to occur in this biodiversity hotspot, of which 6 are considered to be an endemic. More than 380 species of reptiles recorded in this Mediterranean pine-oak woodland biodiversity hotspot, of which 40 are considered to be an endemic. If we talk about the amphibian diversity in this biodiversity hotspot is remarkable, with nearly 200 species, of which 50 are endemic, which means they are not found elsewhere. Another biodiversity hotspot is New Caledonia biodiversity hotspot. And this biodiversity hotspot is located in the South Pacific, about 12,000 kilometers east of Australia. If we talk about the endemism of this biodiversity hotspot is especially high among vascular plant species. There are about 3,200 and 70 plant species recorded on the island, of which 74% are found to be endemic in this biodiversity hotspot. Out of more than 100 bird species found in this biodiversity hotspot of New Caledonia, more than 20 species are found to be endemic. All of the New Caledonia 9 land mammal species are bats, 6 of which are endemic, including some critically endangered New Caledonia long-eared bat, which was actually discovered in 1991. There is an extremely high level of reptile endemism in these biodiversity hotspots. More than 60 of about 70 terrestrial reptiles are endemic to this biodiversity hotspot. There are no native amphibians recorded in the New Caledonia biodiversity hotspots. All the amphibians have been found here or also found elsewhere. Another biodiversity hotspot is New Zealand. If we talk about the New Zealand biodiversity hotspot, it covers the country's three main islands: North Island, South Island, and Stewart Island, and several smaller surrounding islands. If we talk about the plant endemism in this biodiversity hotspot is also very high. Nearly 1,900 of about 3,400 species of vascular plants are endemic to this biodiversity hotspot. Nearly 200 bird species regularly recorded in this biodiversity hotspot of New Zealand, of which nearly 44% of the species are considered to be an endemic to this biodiversity hotspot. Both land mammal species native to the hotspots are endemic bats. Nearly 40 species of reptiles are found in New Zealand biodiversity hotspot. All are unique to these islands. Amphibians are represented in New Zealand by 4 primitive frog species only. Today, if we talk about the threats to this biodiversity hotspots, invasive alien species remain an important threat to New Zealand biodiversity hotspots due to large-scale habitat destruction through deforestation, wetland drainage, and ecosystem degradations represent a serious issue in the New Zealand biodiversity hotspot. Another is North American coastal plain. Found almost entirely within the United States, the North American coastal plains reach from the small section of northern Mexico along the Gulf of Mexico. The Northern American coastal plain has a high number of the plant species with an endemization rate of almost 30%. There are about more than 270 species of the birds native to the North American coastal plains biodiversity hotspots, of about 2.2% of which are considered to be an endemic species. The North American coastal plains contain 306 species of native mammals, of which 114 are endemic to these biodiversity hotspots. There are 293 species of reptiles found are native to this biodiversity hotspot, of which 113 are endemic. If you talk about the amphibian diversity in this biodiversity hotspots is also very high, and the rate of endemism is also very high in case of amphibians. Of the 122 species of native amphibians, 57 species are considered to be an endemic to this biodiversity hotspot. Another is Southwest Australia. The Southwest Australia biodiversity hotspots occupies some 3,56,700 square kilometer of southwestern tip of the continent. Most rain falls during the winter months and the summers are relatively dry. Native plants are well adapted to the nutrient poor soils, which also support large scale crop operations and sheep grazing. More than half of the 5,570 species of the hotspot vascular plants are found nowhere else in the world. It means these species are endemic to these biodiversity hotspots. Our 280 native bird species occur in this region, 12 of which are considered to be an endemic. The level of endemism is slightly higher than in other Mediterranean type hotspots. This hotspots has roughly 60 native mammal species occurring, of which 12 are endemic. Nearly 30 of more than 175 reptile species are endemic to this biodiversity hotspot of Southwest Australia. There are more than 30 species of amphibians found in this biodiversity hotspots, of which two-thirds are considered to be an endemic species of this biodiversity hotspot. Another is Madagascar and Indian Ocean's biodiversity hotspot. This island, we can say, are a living example of species evolution in isolation. The Madagascar, which makes up about 95% of the hotspot land area, new species are being discovered at a very rapid rate. And it has been found that 22 new mammal species and the subspecies have been described and recorded in the last 15 years. Madagascar is known for its rich native flora, with around 90% of the vascular plants found only in this island. Our 11,200 species of vascular plants are currently known to occur in Madagascar biodiversity hotspot, and it is also estimated that at least 2,500 species remain to be discovered or to be described in this biodiversity hotspot. Of the 500 species of the birds found in this biodiversity hotspot, nearly 60% are found nowhere else. Similar to the birds, terrestrial mammals diversity in the hotspot is relatively low, but the level of the species endemism is exceptional. Of the 211 native species of land mammals, 95% are actually endemic. The region is also home to 457 species of reptiles, of which 96% are considered to be an endemic to this biodiversity hotspot. The amphibian endemism in the region is extraordinary, with only one species out of 309 identified not endemic to this biodiversity hotspot. Another is Indo-Burma biodiversity hotspot. In terms of species diversity and endemism, the Indo-Burma biodiversity hotspot, which comprise all non-marine parts of Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, Thailand, and Vietnam, plus some parts of southern China, is one of the most biological important region in the planet. The hotspot is noteworthy for its concentration of globally threatened primates, of which 20 are endemic to these biodiversity hotspots, including pygmy loris and the critically endangered leaf monkey. Each major ecosystem in Indo-Burma supports globally threatened bird species. The reptile species are still being discovered in this biodiversity hotspot of Indo-Burma. Many of the hotspots amphibian species have been described in the last 20 years, indicating that many more species remains to be described. The research is ongoing and we can expect more species in this biodiversity hotspot of Indo-Burma. And with this, we end our today's lecture. And in the next lecture, we will continue to discuss the remaining two biodiversity hotspots. Thank you.